Good morning, guys. Welcome back to Outlaw Country. I hope you're all doing well today. Another beautiful day in the mountains. You know what? I don't think there's such thing as a bad day when you're out in the mountains, right? Anyways, I'm back in one of my top favorite spots. I try to get in here, usually try to get in here about once a month, but it's a hell of a hike in. It's really steep. And it's quite a ways to get back in here, but I love it because I've never seen another soul in here, so it's beautiful country. But anyways, I'm about halfway into where I'm actually going to the lake, and gonna try to get down to the creek, follow the creek a little ways there, and then I gotta pop over the ridge, and I'm into the lake, and I'm gonna get in there and I'll get down here a little ways. I've been going for probably an hour. I'm going to get down here a little ways, take a break, try to get a couple of emails hammered off for you guys. But it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. So not only is there a lot of big blacktails in here, there's a pretty good size herd of Roosevelt elk in here as well that I've seen over the years. And I did put a trail cam in here probably a year ago. And I have caught the elk periodically on the trail cam. Seen bears on the trail cam, seen some real nice blacktails on the trail cam. So it's just all in all a pretty cool spot. Pretty cool spot. And I also know for a fact that the forest people are in here as well. This is an area that dates back to, I believe it was like the early 1970s. Speak of the devil, look at that tree. Okay. Broke off 10 feet up. Another one broke off 20 feet up. Another one there broke off 10 feet up. 8 or 10 feet. Yeah. Whatever. Could be the wind, right? Probably just the wind. Anyways, this area, not right here, but within a few miles of here, dates back to about the 1970s, early to mid 70s, that there was a report of a sighting of one of these beings in here by a local man that lived here his whole life. And it went pretty viral, word of mouth, and I believe that he was a fisheries biologist, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I read the story about it. And it started a bit of a quest of people looking for these creatures. But whatever. One thing I want to bring up, all right, I want a quick discussion about is I just want everybody to be crystal clear, and I'm sure people are. I just want to get this off my chest more than anything. I want people to be crystal clear that, hang on. I want people to be crystal clear that I am by no means trying to persuade anyone or into believing about these beings. I'm not trying to influence anyone. I am not trying to change anyone's mind. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? And whether or not these beings exist, I don't need proof, okay? And I certainly don't need to prove it to anybody. So, you know, I got wrangled into this part of my YouTube channel because I got one email way back when, and I got a hold of Steve Isdall and I said, hey man, I got an email here and this is your thing. Do you want me to forward it to you? And he's like, dude, I got thousands of emails that I haven't gone through. He said, if you got an email, read it on your channel. And so I thought, whatever, I'll just, I figured it was a one-time thing, a one-off. So I read it and the rest is history. I read that email and then, a few more came and I thought, okay, whatever. And then it's just been nonstop. So all I'm doing is trying to share with you all and trying to give people the knowledge and trying to give people, it's the right to the knowledge, and then you have the right to make up your own mind. So I'm not trying to force it on anybody. I really don't care if people believe. It's not something that I talk about on a regular basis at all, like hardly ever. I just don't, not even with my closest friends. I was talking to a buddy of mine just the other day, known this guy for many, many years, and I was talking to him, and he's a First Nations man. He's from Alberta, and he's worked in the oil patch, and he's been a packer, not a guide. I don't know for a fact that he hasn't guided, but I know he's been a packer. And anyways, I just said to him out of the blue, I'm like, we're yakking away about whatever. And I said, hey, man, you ever see any Bigfoot out there where you are? And he just goes, nope. And I go, really, eh? All the time you spend out in the forest and driving on the roads and whatever, and you've never seen one, eh? And he goes, nope. So are we going fishing this summer? And like, he just totally changed the topic, and I picked up right away what he was putting down. Don't know if he's seen them or not, but he certainly didn't want to talk about it. That's totally fine. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't push this onto anybody. I don't expect any. If you don't believe, you don't believe. That's totally fine. You're totally entitled to your opinion. All right, freedom of choice. But sorry, I'm out of breath. Please do not dish the people that are sharing stories and that do believe, because it takes a lot of courage to be able to come out and say, yeah, you know what? I saw one of these things, or whatever it is. Like, for somebody to want to make up a story, go, okay, yeah, so I was out in the bush walking around doing whatever, and I saw a 9-foot massive hairy naked man type beast creature running around. I just don't know. Personally, I just don't even think that would happen. I don't think anybody would do that. There's probably people that would, but you know what I mean? Anyhow, that's enough of that. I'm going to try to get down to the creek here, hammer off a couple of emails for you, show you guys this beautiful area that I'm in, and we'll go from there, all right? So my trail cam is about, I don't know, maybe another quarter mile up here. What I did is I found a spot where there's a really good game trail, and that's where I put my camera. But the elk tend to hang out right in this area. I'm surprised I haven't seen any yet, because I'm moving along fairly quietly, but anyways, they tend to hang out in this area here along the river. It's really steep. It's very steep going up this side, and they kind of like it in here. So last week, I've been kind of buggered up physically here a little bit for the last week and a half, but so last week, the company that I used to work for, most of you obviously probably know if you've been following the channel for any period of time, that after 17 years of employment with my company, I decided it was time for me to move on and took a new job with a different company. Anyhow, the company that I used to work for and this company have a annual fundraising charity hockey game. And pretty ironic that for the past 2 years I was with the other company, and then this year I switch up and I'm playing with a competitor. And it's a great event. It's a phenomenal event and a lot of fun. So this year I get to play against my co-workers from before. And yeah, we had an awesome game, had an awesome time. But right at the end of the game, with just a couple minutes left in the game, one of my old co-workers, not on purpose, but one of my old co-workers ran into me hard. And I'm 6'3", 220, and I'm guessing he's about damn near the same, except he's got he's 20 years younger than me. Right, so I'm the old fart, and I don't bounce back quite the way I used to. So anyways, we collided, and holy shit, did I get hurt. I couldn't breathe very well. Every time I took a breath, it felt like I was getting stabbed in the back, so I figured possibly that I broke a rib. And then I realized after the game that probably what it was I had a rib dislocate. So it's called, I believe it's called subluxation. Subluxed rib. Anyhow, I was in so much pain, couldn't sleep, could barely breathe. I went to physio, she couldn't do much. So she says, you're gonna have to go to see a chiropractor and get it fixed. So I said, okay, so I went to the chiropractor. And he lays me on the bed, lays me down on my stomach, says, okay, when you take a deep breath in, I want you to exhale, and then I'm gonna crack you. And so I took a deep breath in, I exhaled, and he hits me right between the shoulder blade and the spine, and crack, 2 massive pops. And I almost leapt out of my freaking skin. Holy shit, did it hurt. But then a couple minutes later, it was much, much better. So I was kind of laid up for about a week, and feeling obviously a lot better. So I decided to get out give the back a real good workout, go for a super good hike. And this is the spot to do it. But anyways, this charity hockey game, you guys, is phenomenal. This year they raised over $100,000, a little over 112 grand, and all proceeds for this went to 3 different charities: the local hospital foundation, kids sport, and then there was one other one, underprivileged children or something like that it went to. And I thought that was just absolutely awesome, because you know what, there's a lot of kids, there's a lot of people out there that are struggling to make ends meet, having a tough time. And it's even worse when it's kids, because kids have zero choice and they can't do anything about it. So it's a phenomenal cause. It's a great cause, and I'm super proud to support it. So the pain was worth it. Each charity got like over $30,000, which is friggin' awesome. Just love it. Yeah, anyways, the back's feeling better, doing much better. So, and the other day I had another call with the wonderful lady that emailed into me, and yeah, I can say the word now. She's a geneticist, an animal geneticist. I couldn't say that for some reason before, but anyways, I had a good conversation with her again. and maybe she read some of the comments or whatever, and she said, you know, I'm sorry if I caused a bunch of people to be angry or about not being able to share more or everything. But she said the problem is she said the problem is I can't share everything. She did sign an NDA as part of the research she was doing. She did sign an NDA, non-disclosure. She said, I can't say anything, I could be sued and lose everything I have. And then she says, the other part of the deal is, because where she works, she goes, if I shared some stuff, it would totally give me away, and she goes, I'd lose my job. And I'm like, you don't have to apologize to anybody. You know, you've shared what you can, and I appreciate it. And she was reaffirming a lot of stuff, but also gave some new information too, right? Like, she kind of mentioned to me, and I'm pretty sure I shared it with you guys, she kind of mentioned about the genetic alterations, or possible genetic alteration. And look at this area. Sorry guys, look at this. Steep, rugged. Anyhow, she kind of mentioned this genetic alteration, possible genetic alteration. And I don't know a whole lot about it, trust me. I'm not even close to being that smart, but she mentioned that. And I think that part of it's very interesting. Really, really do, because I've kind of leaned that way my whole life with these people. Like, you know, they've obviously been around for thousands of years, but have they been altered in any way by the powers to be? I don't know. Let's leave it at that, maybe. But anyways, I'm gonna talk to her some more. Got so many people to talk to. My goodness, it just never ends. But it's all good. I meet some pretty cool people. Lots of cool people. 11,500 wicked people at Outlaw Country. Okay, I'm gonna take a break here. Another beauty day. Another beauty day. So, I was looking through every once in a while, especially when we hit about this time of the year, right? Where I'm on the countdown. It's hunting season. Six months now. Well, it's what do we got? April, May, June, July, August. 5.5 months. 5 months till hunting season. And I'm like a kid at Christmas time, right? Because I just love hunting season so much. So it's like right on. 5.5 months till hunting season. And I was just digging through some of my photo albums and looking at some of my old hunting videos and stuff, and I ran across a bunch of pictures from years and years and years ago, like many years ago, like 1990. So I was going through these pictures, and I think pretty sure I told you guys about way back in one of my videos, like from a long time ago. I was telling you guys about the old trapper that I met. And kind of became friends with, and he's a very cool man. He's not with us anymore, but he was a very cool dude. And his name was Phil Menu. And so I went through this album. Sorry, I'm a little distracted here, but anyways, I went through this album and I saw pictures of Phil, and I was like, I gotta sort of tell the story about meeting Phil. So it was 1990, and I was moose hunting, and I was by myself. I was up in sort of north central British Columbia, and just had my pickup truck, my pack, my tent, my gear, and I took off into this area that I know quite well. And the reason I know this area is because my aunt used to be a guide, and she owned the guiding territory. Unbelievable lady. She was called the Dog Lady of the North. Betty Blythe, Betty Frank. She had a couple of different last names. Long story. Another story for another day. Anyhow, Betty owned this guiding territory and all the trap lines in the area. So I went in there hunting. And I'd hiked into this, up this, well, it's not really mountainous country. There is mountains there. But anyways, I hiked up this creek and got into this, there's a big pond back there I could see on my map. I didn't have a GPS or anything back then. I just had my maps. Saw the big pond on the map, and I knew if there's a pond there's going to be some meadows and shit. So anyways, I went in there, and it was like I had my pack with me in my tent, my gear, enough food and stuff for like a couple of nights. I could stay out there, and I went in there and was hunting, and it was about 3 or 4 hours from where my truck was, and it was a beautiful area, tons of moose sign around. So I'm like, I'm staying in here. So I kind of hunted around the pond, and I found this old cabin. And it was like really old log cabin. So I'm like, that's interesting. So I went in, I kind of get to the cabin, and as I approach the cabin, I start calling out like, hello, anybody home? Anybody home? Nothing. And it didn't look used at all. Like, it looked old and derelict and just beat up. And so anyhow, it's just a small cabin. It's probably 12 by 14 or 16. So I go up, knock on the door, and you could just tell by looking around, it just didn't look like anybody had been there at all. So I'm like, knock on the door, hello, nothing. So it had a wooden sliding latch thing on it. So I slide the latch and I open the door, and as I open the door, I'm like, hello, anybody home? Anybody home? Open the door right up, nobody there. And it didn't look like the cabin had been used in 30, 40 years. So I'm like, perfect, I'm gonna sleep in the cabin, right? Rather than set up my tent. It had a little tiny potbelly wood stove in it, and I thought, I'll sleep in the cabin. That'll be way better than sleeping outside in the tent and everything. So I always carry my little hand fold up Boreal bow saw with me and my hip hatchet. So I went out and got cut a little bit of wood, and come back in, and I'm getting the fire going in this little tiny potbelly wood stove. It's about that long, about that big around. I had to kind of fix the pipes up or whatever, so I did that. Light my fire and get the fire going a little bit or whatever, and I'm like, this is going to be great. So I just rolled my air mattress out on the floor. There was a bed frame there made out of like slats of wood, but I'm like, I'm just going to sleep on the floor. So I lay my air mattress down, blow it up, throw my sleeping bag on there, grab my little pot, gonna make something to eat. I'm like, this is great, man. Anyhow, I have something to eat, and just, have a cup of coffee, just sit around for a bit. And finally, it's whatever time. I don't even know what time it was, maybe like 9 o'clock or something. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna turn in, get up early, go hunting. So I jump my sleeping bag, and I'm kind of laying right beside the wood stove, and that's sound of sleep, pass right out. And anyways, I wake up and I figured it was like maybe close to morning. I figured it was maybe 5 o'clock or something, because that's 4:35 is when I normally wake up. So kind of wake up, and I'm like, I look, and I open my eyes, and there's this dude standing there literally at my feet. And this guy is about 5'8", 120 pounds, skinny, had a beard down to about here, grayish beard, long grayish color, grayish hair, rough looking, man. I am telling you, this dude looked like a serial killer, something right out of a movie. And he had a old, messed up kind of cowboy hat, like a leather style cowboy hat on, and it was all twisted and wet and dirty, and like, this guy looked scary as hell. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm looking, I'm trying to open my eyes, and I'm like rubbing my eyes, and I look, and I go, and I'm looking, I'm going, oh my God. And this guy's standing there at my feet, and he's got an old like canvas pack on, just a small one, canvas pack on, just the dirtiest clothes you could ever imagine, hands dirty, face dirty, and I'm just like, shit. And he's got a 30-30 lever action in his hand, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm a dead man. This dude's gonna shoot me and cut me up and throw me in a pot. It's going to be Darren stew for dinner, right? I'm just like, I'm actually in shock, and I'm just like, and I look, and where's my 300? My 300 is laying on the table. There was a little table, wooden table, and my 8 feet away from me. That's where my 300 is laying, and I'm like, oh shit. And so anyways, I kind of go, hi. And he looks at me, he goes, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I was looking for a place to sleep for the night, and I have a tent and everything, but I didn't think anybody was living here, and I knocked on the door and there was nobody here, and I was just getting in out of the weather. And he's like, how did you find this place? And I'm like, well, I just stumbled upon it. I'm in here moose hunting. And he goes, what are you gonna do if you shoot a moose back here? I call that bullshit. And I said, well, I'll pack it out. If I shoot one, I'll bone it out and pack it out. And I'm kind of like, I'll leave, man. I'm really sorry. I'll get out of here. And he's just staring at me. And I'm like, oh my God. I go, I didn't mean to intrude on your home. I'll grab my shit. I'm out of here. And he goes, it's pretty near midnight. And I went, and I didn't know what time it was. And I'm like, oh, okay, like, I don't mind. I'm out of here. I'll pack up my stuff and I'll leave you alone. I'm really sorry. And I go to get out of my bag and everything. And he goes, and he's just staring at me. And I'm just like, so anyways, I said, I'll pack my stuff and I'll be on my way. I'll find a spot, I'll set up my tent. And he goes, might as well stay now, seeing as you're already here. And I said, no, it's okay. I don't want to intrude on you. And he goes, I said you might as well stay. So I'm like, okay. So anyways, I get up and I go sit at the kitchen table closer to my gun. So I sit down at the table, and he comes and sits at the table and he takes his hat off. And like I say, this guy is dirty. And he's just, all he did was stared at me. And I'm like, this is fucking freaking me out. And after a couple of minutes, I'm kind of like, are you sure? I don't mind leaving. And he goes, I said it's okay. It's dark out there. Can't go anywhere. Might as well sleep in here rather than sleep in my yard. So I'm like, okay. So then after about 5 minutes of sitting there at the kitchen table, and I finally said to him, I'm like, so do you live here? And he goes, of course I damn live here. And I'm like, okay. And then he gets up and he leaves his 30-30. He gets up and goes out the door. Comes back in a couple minutes later with a big armload of wood. And he puts more wood in the stove or whatever. And he gets a kettle and puts the kettle on the stove. I'm like, holy shit, it's like midnight. But anyways, puts a kettle on the stove and comes and sits back down. And he's just like this, staring at me. And then he puts his hand out and he goes, I'm Phil Menu. And so I said, I'm Darren Clark. Nice to meet you, Phil. So anyways, we started talking a little bit, and he wanted to know how the hell I found this area and why I was there. And anyways, I said, well, I've hunted in here for, like, not right here, but I've hunted this area for a few years. I said, as a matter of fact, my aunt owns this guiding territory and the trap lines and stuff in here. And he kind of goes like, he goes, who's your aunt? And I said, Betty. And he kind of looks again, he goes, and I go, Betty Franks. And he goes, well, I work for Betty, kinda. Anyways, long story short, he ran one of Betty's trap lines. And so he ended up being just the kindest man. He just was really rough around the edges because I was the first person he'd seen, like, in 4 months. So he's just not good with people, right? But him and I became pretty damn good friends. And that was the very first year I met Phil. And then I went in there for about 4 years and saw him every year. And I would bring my guitar. The second year I came in, I brought my guitar in because he loved music and he had nothing, right? And he just sang, and he's horrible when he sang with no music. But anyways, I'd bring my guitar in and we'd sit around, and of course he didn't drink either. But when I was out hunting, I'd bring a bottle of whiskey or whatever, and we'd have a few drinks, and I'd play the guitar, and he'd sing, and he was awful. He thought he was incredible, thought he was a great singer, but he's not. And then and he sang a lot of, like, I don't know if he was I don't know his, where he's from or whatever, but he sang a lot of like Newfoundland songs and Irish folk type music and stuff. Good songs, but he was just a horrible singer. But anyways, we played along and we'd have some drinks and we had a great time and built quite the friendship. And Phil taught me how to set snares, how to read game trails, how to use actual traps. He taught me so much because he was a lifelong trapper and he was just a great guy. And like I say, I got to spend 4 years going in there and the 1 year I spent a month with him. And I learned so much, and he was an awesome man. So anyways, I just thought I'd share that because it was pretty, you look at old photos or videos or whatever, and you start reminiscing, you go, man, remember that, remember this, remember that? And, I just thought it was pretty cool how I met Phil because I thought he was going to kill me and eat me. And that's no bullshit. That is no bullshit. That's one thing you're going to find out about me, folks. I am who I am, right? Take it or leave it. What you see is what you get. And I don't try to hype myself up or nothing. I really don't care what people think of me. I live my life. I try to live as a good person, and like I say, what you see is what you get. No bullshit, no smoke and mirrors. And that's kind of how I like people, right? I gravitate towards people like that. I don't give a rat's ass how much money you have, how nice your vehicle is. I don't care. Okay, materialistic shit doesn't mean a damn thing to me. Nothing. Because in the end, what was that old saying? There used to be an old saying, he who dies with the most toys wins or something. And I'm like, what a stupid thing to say that is. He who dies with the most toys wins, right? Remember that tattoo I got on my arm, die with memories, not with dreams. Right? To me, it's about what you do and the people you meet and the memories you have. Because when it's your time to go, it don't matter if you got the nicest truck or the nicest car or the nicest boat or whatever. It don't mean a damn thing. Nothing. So I try to surround myself with people much like me, just good, honest people, just real people. Anyhow, it's enough. That's my outlaw country, piece of advice for the week. Surround yourself with people like yourself. Don't like negativity either. Negative, beat it. Piss off, I don't want to talk to you. Hate negative people. I hate negative people. I grew up in a very negative with a lot of negativity at times, and I didn't like it. So. Holy shit. Frickin' mosquito must have been crossbred with a hummingbird, that friggin' thing. Holy cow. It's that time of the year. Bugs are coming out. You know how much I love bugs, right? Well, that bugger was the size of a robin. Holy cow. Here we are. Next on the list. Glasses are on for all those people that hate seeing the beautiful scenery in the woods. Hi Darren, I hope this email finds you well. I hope you and your family are all ready for Christmas and have a great holiday season. I've been following your channel for almost a year now, and I have to say that I love what you share with the people. I love your adventures, the scenery, your hunting stories, and also the way you deliver other people's experiences through emails. I really like the fact that you just read what's there without trying to change things to sound more interesting or terrifying. No embellishment. I just turned 70 on November 10th, and I've spent my life in the mountains both for work and play. I first started working in the woods as a bucker. On a logging crew when I was 17 years old. I enjoyed hunting and fishing and just being in the woods, so logging was an easy choice for me as a career. In '76, when I was 22 years old, I was teamed up with an old-time faller that would teach me how to fell trees and I spent the next year and a half working right beside him, learning the tricks of the trade. The following spring, I was on my own, following my own area of big western red cedar and Douglas fir. There was 4 of us following a block at the end of a box canyon, and it was early October, which is my favorite time to be out in the woods. Nice and cool, and it's easy to work. We parked the Crummy at the end of the road, and because I was the young buck, I had to head straight uphill and fall the steepest section of the block. We used to leave our saws in the bush overnight if they weren't in need of any maintenance, because they were big and heavy and hard to pack out in and out each day. I was packing in my oil and gas as well as my lunch, and I headed straight for the spot that I left my saw yesterday. When I got to the big cedar stump that I'd felled the day before, I noticed my saw was gone. I stood there and looked around for a minute and then said loudly, "For fuck's sakes." I figured someone must have come in there at night and taken my saw. So I was pissed right off. As fallers back then, we had to buy our own saw and look after it. They weren't supplied by the company. Saws weren't cheap either. I can't remember exactly what I paid for that saw, but I think it was somewhere around $250 to $300. That was a pile of damn money back then, so I wasn't none too happy. I walked around the stump with the cedar thinking maybe an animal knocked it off, but it wasn't there. I put my gas and oil and my lunch pail on the stump and started walking circles around the tree looking for any sign of my saw. I was about 75 to 100 feet away from my shit when I see something orange about 14 feet up a huge Douglas fir. As I get closer, oh my God. As I get closer, I can see that it's my damn saw. It's 14 to 16 feet up a tree, hanging off a freshly broken branch by its handle. I stood there and said out loud, "What in the fuck is going on here?" There was no way for me to get my saw. I did have climbing gear back in the Crummy, so I decided that was my only choice. As I was standing there scratching my head, I said, "For fuck's sakes," out loud again. And immediately, I heard someone laughing. It almost sounded like a young child laughing. It certainly wasn't an adult laugh. Caught me off guard, to say the least. I turned around to see who was there, but saw nothing. Then I heard it again, to the right of where it first came. I looked in that direction, but again, nothing. I yelled, "Hey, who the fuck's there?" But no response. I wait a minute, looking around, but see nothing. So I decided to head for the stump to grab something from my lunch bucket, and I head back to the stump to grab something for my lunch bucket, and it's gone. My damn lunch bucket is gone off the stump. My oil gas can is there, and so is my thermos, but no lunch. I look around again and yell, "Hey, who the fuck's out there?" Suddenly it dawned on me that one of the guys must be screwing with me and trying to scare the piss out of the kid. I yelled, "Very funny, guys, fuck you." I still never heard anything, so I headed for the Crummy to get my spurs and gear. I grabbed my shit and headed back to my saw. As I get close to the tree it was in, there's my damn saw laying on the ground at the base of the tree. Now I'm really pissed off. I'm sure it's one of the guys, maybe the whole crew, screwing with me. I grab my saw, head back to the big cedar stump, and as I'm fueling and oiling, I hear the roar of the other saws, which was obviously oblivious to me before. When I heard the other saws and how far away they were from me, I started to doubt my theory. I started to doubt my theory of the guy screwing with me. I finished up and got to work. And since I had no lunch, I just worked till the end of the day. I headed back to the crummy, and 2 of the 3 guys were already there. The 2 older fallers said, "Hey Reg, how was your day today?" I said, "Oh, it was a great day," trying not to let on about my saw. They just said, "Good to hear, lad." That was it. Finally, John got to the crummy and jumped in, and we headed out. Not a damn word was said by any of them, and I wasn't about to bring it up so they could all tease me. I kept my mouth shut all the way home. Next day we headed back to work, and I go right back up to where I'd left my saw. And sure enough, she's right where I left her, on the stump. But that ain't all. There's my fucking lunch pail sitting right beside my saw. I damn near shit myself. Now I knew for a fact it wasn't one of the guys screwing with me. This was bizarre. I grabbed my lunch pail and opened it up, and there wasn't a damn thing left in it. It was empty. I had another lunch pail, so I left them both on the stump and got to work. I finished the end. As I was getting ready to go, I thought to myself, I'm going to leave my pail here with some food in it and see what happens. Well, next morning, I gets back to my saw and lunch pail, and sure as shit, it's empty. But the latch is closed, and it's sitting right beside my saw. That day when I got back to the crummy, on the way out, I says to the guys, "So, the other day when we came to work, my fucking saw was 15 feet up a damn tree, stuck on a branch. And then someone stole my lunch pail and returned it empty the following day. What in the fuck is going on here, guys?" Old Stuart was the oldest, most experienced guy in our crew, and he was driving the crummy. He slammed on the brakes, turned around to look at me and said, "What the hell are you saying?" I said, "Well, Stu, that's what happened, and I want to know if you guys are fucking with me." He looked at me stone-faced and said, "Reg, something is fucking with you, but it's not any of us." He asked me to tell him exactly what had happened each day, so I explained it in detail. He said, "I'll guarantee you it was a Sasquatch. No doubt in my mind." I said, "What? What the hell is a Sasquatch?" Stu started driving again, and then came the explanation of what a Sasquatch was. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I didn't believe him. I asked a bunch of questions, and Stu had answers for all of them. He said he'd seen several of them over the past 20 years. And he said they'll play tricks on you and do shit like that. I still didn't believe Stu, but he was awfully convincing. Well, about a week later, in the same block, I saw firsthand what old Stu was talking about. As I got into the block where I was going to be working, I dropped my shit on a stump, grabbed my saw to fuel and oil it. Just as I turned around, this huge being rose up from the forest floor about 20 feet from me. Back then I was 6'2", about 200 pounds of pure muscle. And this son of a bitch was almost twice my height. And when I say massive, I honestly can't do it any justice. This thing was enormous and thick. I wouldn't say it looked real muscular, but its arms were the size of an 18-inch tree and its legs the size of a 36-inch tree. And that's no bullshit. As this thing rose up, it started grunting, and it kept its eyes glued to me as it slowly turned away from me and began to walk away. It was walking in slow motion, as if it thought I couldn't see it, or as if it thought I couldn't see it. And every couple steps decides it would turn its head and look right at me. I was frozen in place. I couldn't talk, yell, or nothing. I just stood there and watched this massive being walk away from me. Now what's even more strange is that this huge animal or person or whatever the hell they are never made a sound, not even one branch breaking or anything. It was absolutely dead quiet. When it got about 60 feet away from me, it turned its head one last time, looked at me, and then bolted. And it was faster than any deer, elk, or bear could run. Now I could hear it as it crashed a couple of times. I couldn't stay there and work after that. I couldn't stay there and work after that I'd seen, so I took my saw and headed for the crummy and waited for the guys. When I told them what I'd seen, only Robert seemed surprised. Stu and Don barely acknowledged me, but old Stu said, "Listen, Reg, you gotta do your job or the boss will let you go. We all know these buggers are out here, and they've been out here forever, but we still gotta get our jobs done. You leave them alone, they'll leave you alone." Then Don said, "You just make sure you pack them lots of lunch, Reg." And he laughed. For some strange reason, what Stu said to me that day made sense. If they wanted to hurt me, they could have, but they didn't. I went back to work the next morning, and every morning after that, until I turned 59. Over 40 years, I was a faller, until injuries put me in the seat of a grader where I worked until 2 years ago. I've seen these Sasquatch people at least a dozen times in my 50 years in the woods, so I don't need no damn evidence of them. Most loggers I've known over my life have also seen them or been told by a co-worker who has seen one. I could tell you many more stories about running into these bush people, and one time literally almost running into one with my grader. But maybe I'll save that for another time. My body's worn out now and I can't get out in the woods anymore, and I miss it dearly. So instead I watch outdoor shows on my wife's iPad and remember when it was me out there. Okay, well that's probably way too much for now. You can give me a holler sometime if you want to have a bullshit. Talk again soon, Darren. Reg Stillwell. Wow. Freaking me out, Reg. Freaking me out. I love hearing from these people that have worked out in the woods, fallers, trappers, First Nations people that spend a lot of time. I love it. Like my grandfather was a faller, and many of my family were fallers, and so I can totally relate to that. But holy shit, like totally talk about playing with you, and then that thing to be right there, man. Like 15 feet, I think you said, Reg. Holy shit. Wild. I'll get a hold of you, dude, for sure. Thank you so much for sending that in, Reg. Really do appreciate it. Well, before I get too scared, I'm gonna. Yeah, I do get scared, people. I'm not gonna bullshit you. I can't help it. I do get a little scared out here sometimes. Especially when I'm reading emails like that. My God. Waiting for something to sneak up behind me and grab me. I do get scared, all right? Or whatever. Whatever, I'm not gonna talk about it. Okay, next. Thanks, Reg. Appreciate it. Hey, Darren, I really enjoy your channel and the amazing hikes you take. I also appreciate the emails you share. And most importantly, the manner in which you share them. My wife and I had a pretty wild encounter back in 2018, and my wife hasn't returned to the forest since then. She used to love hunting with me, and she's a really accomplished bow hunter. She's shot some nice white-tailed deer, a couple of black bears with her bow, and in 2018 she decided to join me on a fly-in archery hunt for elk to an area that I hunted in 2016. It's a 30-minute flight in a small Cessna to the little lake where my good friend has a small hunting cabin. We got to the lake about 10 a.m. and had 10 days there to try to get at least one bull. On the third night of our trip, we were sitting outside on the deck of the cabin just as the sun was setting, and we heard a hell of a howl from across the lake. Lisa said, "Was that an elk?" And I answered her honestly, "I don't think so. I'm not too sure. That was a really odd sound." I knew the howl wasn't an elk. I knew the howl wasn't a wolf. It was way too low and lasted way too long. It lasted likely 20 seconds to maybe 30 seconds, which told me the lung capacity had to be massive. This thing howled twice, and that was it. Not another sound the rest of the night. I woke up in the middle of the night to bangs, like someone was hammering the base of a tree with a sledgehammer. I was wide awake after the first smack. And after about the fourth one, Lisa woke up and grabbed my arm and said, "What was that?" Just then it hammered the tree one more time, and then the friggin' howl that we had heard earlier. Lisa screamed, and I've got to admit, I jumped out of my skin as well. This fucking thing was close, and it sounded pissed off. For the first time in my life in the woods, I felt vulnerable and completely useless. I had my bow and a .45 beside my bed, but my gut told me my .45 was no good in a situation. I grabbed my pistol and flashlight and went outside and stood by the fire pit, which was just a pile of embers at this point. I was shining my flashlight around the cabin area when all of a sudden I saw the shimmer of two white eyes reflecting in the light. And as my eyes adjusted, I could make out a huge dark figure, only 30 feet from the corner of the cabin. Pretty much as soon as my light hit this thing, I felt something hit me like I got ran over by a defensive tackle. I got hit so hard, it blew me off my feet, knocked the wind out of me. I was literally lying on my back, seeing stars with my ears ringing. I was gasping for breath. As I kind of came to, I could hear Lisa screaming at the top of her lungs for me. I struggled to get to my feet, and I staggered towards the cabin door. I was groggy and seeing doubles. As I opened the door, I saw Lisa on the ground crying hysterically. I knelt down to grab her, and she started swinging at me and screaming. So I grabbed her tight and yelled, "Babe, it's me, it's me." She finally opened her eyes and wrapped her arms around me and was crying out of control. I still felt like I'd been hit by a truck, man. My body hurt everywhere and my head was pounding. I had lost my .45 and my flashlight, and I had nothing to defend myself with. So I went back outside to find it. My pistol and flashlight were 10 feet from where I was standing beside the fire pit, the flashlight still on. I grabbed both and ran back into the cabin. My wife was absolutely hysterical and could not settle down for hours. She finally was able to tell me that this huge being opened the door of the cabin, and as she got up from the bed, the thing grabbed her by the shoulders and pulled her towards it. I looked at her shoulders, and they were very red and showing signs of bruising already. She said it was a huge, hairy man with reddish, gold-colored eyes. He was so big, he was hunched over inside the cabin. She said he had a man's face, but it was entirely covered in long, black, matted hair. As this fucking thing grabbed Lisa, she kicked it as hard as she could several times, and it released her. And then completely vanished right before her eyes. Seconds later is when she realized it was me holding her and calling her name. I held my wife close all night long, and neither of us slept a wink. I sat there with my .45 staring at the door of the cabin until daylight came. As soon as it got daylight, I used a sat phone and I called the pilot and requested an emergency flight out. He asked if everything was okay. I said, we're okay, but get in and get us out of here. He said he'll be there in a couple of hours. Lisa sat outside by the fire pit as I packed up camp. She just stared at the lake and barely spoke to me. I knew she was still in shock, and I think I was as well. Sure enough, just as I finished packing up, the plane landed and came to shore. Our pilot helped me load the gear and was asking me, is everything okay? I said, no, man, we're not okay. Get us the fuck out of here. Once we loaded up, I got Lisa in the back seat and I sat co-pilot. It broke my heart every time I looked back and saw her sitting there with a blank look on her face. She looked empty, as if she was in a different place. I had the headset on and George asked me what had happened, so I told him. He turned his head and looked right in my eyes and said, are you serious, man? I said, yes, I am serious. I can't believe what I witnessed and what has happened. George told me he heard a story from about 30 years ago. There was a couple hunters that had got chased out of a camp in the middle of the night by a huge hairy being. And these two guys left all of their gear at the camp and hiked 3 days back to civilization. I won't go on about all the trauma that Lisa's gone through, man. It took her 3 years of regular counseling to be able to even talk to me about the events of that night. I didn't hunt for the next 2 years. And even now, I find it tough to spend more than one night out in the bush. Lisa says she'll never hunt or go back in the woods again. She still wakes up from time to time in the middle of the night screaming. I wake her up, hug her, and she cries hysterically until she falls back to sleep. I've watched a lot of Sasquatch channels, and many have different theories on the intent of these evil fucking beasts. I share this with you because I believe you will read this as it's written. These beings are pure evil in my eyes, and if I ever lay eyes on one again, I'm sure I will empty my gun into it strictly out of hate alone. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and I'm fine with that. But these beings tried to take my wife from me, and now they have ruined her love of the outdoors, and they've also taken a big chunk of that from me as well. I honestly don't think there's any good in these things. That's my opinion. I know that I can't defend myself against them, but I would die trying. I know you spend a lot of time in the wilderness, Darren, and I know that you've never had a really bad experience with these creatures, and I pray you never do. But please don't ever let your guard down, man. I honestly believe they will take you out in a heartbeat if they want to, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. I'll let you go for now, man, but reach out if you ever want to have a chat. I please ask you to text me before you call, as I never discuss this when Lisa is around. Take it easy and always watch your back. Later, Daryl Prosper. Lee. I don't even know what I have. I have the shivers right now thinking about that, reading that. Daryl, Lisa, holy shit. What a terrifying, horrible experience. Horrible. As I said to you before, I try to put myself there, and I don't want to. I didn't want to with that one, but I did, and I was like, I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I'd do, Daryl. Brother, I'm gonna reach out to you today. When I get home, I'm gonna call you, or maybe on my way home, I'm gonna call you. And I want to see how your wife is doing. I want to see how you're doing. I don't blame you. I don't blame you for feeling the way you feel. Anybody ever mess with my family? I would do anything I had to do to protect my family. Man, that's just like brutal. That's brutal. I don't like to hear that. I don't like to hear that at all. But I've said it. I've said it before, and I'm. You know what, Daryl, you're totally entitled to your opinion. But I've said it as well. I think there's good and there's bad, and I think that is bad. Like really bad. I'm going to share that one with Fred Roll, because Fred has the same type of a feeling about these things. Daryl, Lisa, my heart goes out to you both. Thanks for writing in, Daryl. I will text you first, and then I'd love to have a chat with you, and I pray that your wife is doing better. I think traumatizing events just take time to heal, right? Like when I got charged by the grizzly, it took me a long time to heal, because I thought I was a dead man. But that's a bear. That's something that we know, that's something that we expect could very, very likely happen. Can't even talk. But having one of these beings grab a hold of your wife, wow. All right, that's more than enough for now. I am going to get up to my camera, to where my camera's at, check it out, and get the hell out of here. That's got to be one of the worst emails I've read. Literally. Like, holy cow. I'm not shitting you right now, you guys. I can't get out of here quick enough right now. The mind is a powerful thing, and the mind's a powerful thing. And when the mind starts playing tricks on you and telling you things that you really don't want to hear, it's hard to ignore it. I didn't like that. I didn't like that email at all. So what do you guys think of this area? Do you blame me for wanting to get out of here? All right, well, I'm gonna, geez. You know what's tough? You know what I find hard is, okay, so Reg's email, it sounded like these things were playing with him, screwing with him, having fun with him, right? And you go, huh, buggers, eating his lunch, taking his saw. You know, you kind of almost chuckle about it a little bit, and then I read Daryl's, and I'm freaked right out. And I'm like, these things are evil, horrible creatures. What a difference, eh? All right, well, I can tell you one thing. I personally have had enough of talking about the forest people for one day. I've had enough of talking about them. So I'm gonna just enjoy my hike, check my camera, and call it a day. So hope you guys enjoyed today's hike. I can't ask you to enjoy both those emails because I didn't. But I hope you enjoyed the hike. Thanks for coming along. I wish everyone the best. Health, happiness, and as I always say, more importantly than anything, be a good person. The world needs more good people, so be a good person. Do something nice for somebody. Do something nice for a stranger. Okay, I'm out of here, guys. We'll see you next time.